this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to finish up all the photos that I have from the Polynesian Cultural Center. These photos for today focus on Samoa, and we didn't get as many photos from Samoa as I had wanted or wished we could have because we couldn't spend as much time as we had hoped. But we did get a few pictures, which is really fun, and also a cute picture of some friends of ours that we met when we were stationed in Brooklyn. They're now stationed in Hawaii, and so we got to have dinner with them, which was really fun, the Ramsey family. So that picture is going to go on this layout as well. And it should be a really interesting layout. So let's check out what's in my workspace and we'll get started. Alright, so this is my workspace for today, and you'll recognize this page as the right side of my the previous layout that we just did. And we're just going to flip this page here in just a second, and I will just run through the supplies that I have out here to use today. Today we're going to make a layout using quite a few pieces of paper, but well, actually just two pieces, mainly just two pieces and a third for a portion of it. And we're going to use some stickers, and initially I thought I was going to need 2 sheets of these 12-inch stickers that you see on top here, because I wanted to use those starfish that are going down the middle, and for some reason Creative Memories decided to only give us one where you see 2 rows of lily pads and 2 rows of fish, but only 1 row of starfish or sea stars. And so in order to use those on a 2-page layout, you kind of need 2 of them. Ultimately though, as I worked through this layout and taped it for you, I decided that I didn't want to use those after all. So we're not going to be using the Serene Waters stickers on this layout, but we are going to use these stickers that are part of the Florida Scenes. They go with the paper for Florida Scenes that came out just recently. And I don't know, I'm sure you can't see it very well on camera, but these waves that are across the bottom are a 12-inch sticker, and there are 4 of them. And I needed 4 of the same sticker to do this layout, so so these will work perfectly, and they're the perfect color for what I need as well. So I was excited to find those. So we're going to use those today, and probably not any of the other stickers on this sheet because the colors don't really go with what we're doing today, but the waves definitely, that blue picks up a blue in the paper we're going to use, so we're going to use those. Then I have this dark blue kind of mottled paper on top. That's from Serene Waters, and we will use that for a portion of the layout. And then we're going to use a sheet of this orange and a sheet of the bright colors from the sheet I just flipped over. There you go. Both of those are from Tropic Time, and so we're going to use 2 of those today, and maybe just a little bit of the other sheet of orange. I can't remember if I ended up having to do that or not. Today we're going to do these photos of the Polynesian Cultural Center and focusing on Samoa and the island of Samoa, and we didn't get to do as much that had to do with Samoa as we may have otherwise, because we had made arrangements to have dinner with this lovely family, some friends of ours that we met in Brooklyn who were stationed there with us in the Army, and they are still active duty and moved to Hawaii, Oahu, and invited us to come over for dinner. So we got to go spend some time with them. When we knew them, that their youngest daughter there was not in the family yet. And the youngest son, she was pregnant with the youngest son, Ellis. So it was fun spending some time with them and getting to know them a little bit better. So we have these other photos of a temple, a Samoan temple, and the lovely sister missionaries who took us on a tour of BYU Hawaii, which is right next to the Polynesian Cultural Center, and then the Latter-day Saint, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple is on the other side of BYU Hawaii. So for a little while we sat on a cute little trolley, and they drove us over there to show us those things and talk to us a little bit about the purpose behind the Polynesian Cultural Center. In addition to educating people on all the different island nations and the heritage, the rich heritage of the Pacific Island peoples, it has another purpose, and that is that any students who want to come to Brigham Young University, Hawaii, but cannot afford it, can work at the Polynesian Cultural Center, and all the proceeds from the Polynesian Cultural Center over and above expenses are put towards the cost of education for those kids who work there. So it's really a great benefit to them for you to visit the Polynesian Cultural Center. I highly recommend it, and be generous when you do go, because it's a great, it's just a really great thing, a great opportunity for us to help out some people that are trying to, improve and help themselves. We're also going to put on this highlight bit that I cut out of the flyer. Remember, we put this on at each one of the new islands that we visit at the Polynesian Cultural Center. So this is going to go there, and we learn you can go and weave your own fish with coconut leaves, which is really fun, and people had done that and were waving them all over. You can learn how to spin a fire knife. We did not do that. You can make fire the Samoan way without matches, which is fun. We did watch some people try and do that. And then you can also learn how to cook Samoan dishes in their outdoor kitchen and try them. So that's kind of fun. I also have this brochure, which at the end of this video you will notice I did not get this put in. I was going to use the travel brochure, or the brochure holder, I think is what they're called, that Creative Memories has, to put this in, because it has this really nice article about the Polynesian Cultural Center and a bunch of the other things that we enjoyed while we were visiting Oahu. So I thought it might be fun to include this, but I did not get it put in. So I have pulled out a peekaboo pocket and put it into the peekaboo pocket rather than this cute adhesive slide-in envelope. And I may put it in using the peekaboo pocket, or I may find another layout that I can add it to. We'll see what happens. But I liked the fact that right on the front of this This Week in Oahu brochure that I found in our hotel, it actually says highlights from the Polynesian Cultural Center. So that was kind of the focus of this pamphlet, which I thought was really cool. Anyway, so we'll set this aside, and I may get to it in a later layout, but it won't be in this one. So as I'm explaining here, we're going to set that extra sheet of orange aside because I think we're not going to need it. As I recall, I did not need to get into that one. We are going to cut these 2 pages to the point where we cover both sides of this layout with paper, but the paper will be aligned in such a way that it'll be cut and reassembled. So we are going to need to grab the trimmer and get started with that, and we also need the blue sheet, which I just grabbed because that will be also a part of this. So cutting the blue paper is what I chose to do first. That's going to be 4.5 inches by 12, and you'll need 2 of them. So just cutting it at 4.5, and then you have the 4.5 by 12 pieces. So there's those 2 pieces, and the extra piece I just stuck up there. All right. I was trying to find a spot where I could put those where you could see them a little more easily. All right, and then cutting the orange piece, we're going to cut a strip of 4.5. We're actually going to cut 2 strips at 4.5. And then we're going to stack them. After we stack them, we're going to go ahead and cut this down to 11 inches. So that means that I just used the measurements on the right hand side and cut an inch off because I knew that paper was 12 inches. So we've got 11 by 4.5, 2 pieces at 11 by 4.5. Then I'm going to take the remaining bit of orange paper and I'm going to cut 2 1-inch pieces off of this bit that's left over. So there's one, then we're going to do a second one. And then we're going to stack those 2 pieces so that I have 2 1-inch pieces, and we're going to cut those down to 11 inches. So the key here is just to keep them nice and tightly together and nice and snug up against that shoulder at the top or the bottom, whichever you're more comfortable with using. And mine was slightly out of alignment, so I had to scoot that a little bit more together. And we just cut 1 inch off and set that aside. And then we've got our 1 by 11s. Now the remaining strip of orange we are going to use to help double matte that photo, because if you've been following my channel, you know that I double matte all of those banners that introduce each country. So I'm just going to tuck this up there because I know we're going to need it when we get that far, but we're not that far yet. So alright, so the remaining flower paper, we're going to cut this into 6 strips that are 1.5 by 12 inches. So I'm going to just start, and I'm going to measure on the right so that I have the length of my paper against a shoulder. I'm using the lower shoulder, the bottom shoulder, the one that's closer to me, to do this because I find it more convenient to do that and move my paper over. So we're going to do 1.5, that's 1, there's 2, remember we're doing 6 of these, so there's 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. All right, so the remaining part of this paper we're just going to set aside because we will probably use a bit of it later. And now we have enough pieces that we can go ahead and assemble the base part of our layout. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take these 1.5 inch strips, and I'm going to make them go all the way around the outer edge of our layout. So that'll take me a minute, and I'll fast forward it so you don't have to watch the whole thing. Alright, so now we are going to get the wider portion of our orange paper that we cut, the one that is 4.5 by 11. We're going to go ahead and add adhesive around the outer edge of this. Now we'll stick some just in the middle of that wider short side, and then I'm going to add this right along the edge of the top piece, so right against the jeeping and along the edge of the top piece of floral paper. And it was at this point that I noticed actually I needed to overlap it just slightly, so I'm going to take that off in just a second. There we go. And just move it up about 1/2 inch. Probably don't need to move it up a full 1/2 inch, but however far you move it up, just make sure that you make the page next door match. You know, your right hand side needs to match the left hand side, so however you decide to do it, you can overlap it just a little bit. You don't have to go a full 1/2 inch, I discovered, and probably not going a full 1/2 inch will make things a little bit easier to manage, because when you overlap the paper just a little bit on the edge, it's just a lot less headache of trying to worry about gaps and things like that. So now we're going to take the 1 inch strip and we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. Still going to overlap it just a bit, but I need to make sure that my blue strip is going to fit. So I'm going to add adhesive on here, and then I think I grabbed that blue strip that we cut, and I'll, yeah, I think I'm grabbing it. Oh, maybe not. Because I think I had to do some adjusting in here because I really wasn't sure how it was all going to work, but I wanted to make sure that I still had an adequate border that matched the top border in size, but so I wouldn't have huge gaps where I could see the natural paper of my page through. Right, so going ahead and getting the blue, love this orange side of the blue. It's reminds me of a goldfish actually, with the golden stuff, but I like the blue side better, so that's why we went with that. Anyway, so I'm going to fuss with this here just for a bit, and you may need to fuss with it too. However, depending on how much you overlapped your paper at the top, it may not be as much fussing for you as I had, because I was trying to make sure that I was covering the natural bit of my page with my paper, and the measurements were pretty exacting, and if anything is even slightly off, then it can be kind of difficult. So that's why I went ahead and lifted this back up so that I could move it up and make it a little bit less noticeable that there was some space there. So I'm just going to use my all-purpose tool to hold that paper up a little ways so I can sneak this paper underneath and make sure that they overlap just a bit. And once again, once you build this side, then you can make the other side match. So it's not really as critical that you you don't have to be concerned that your cuts may not be completely accurate. You can fix it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing to the right side, and I'm just going to speed that up so that you don't have to watch the whole thing. Alright, so the right side is done, and now we're going to grab those Florida stickers with the waves and go ahead and get those put on. These are all kinds of fun. They are cut in that curve of the wave, as you can see, that kind of scallopiness. So put them right on the edge of the jeeping in the center or on the outside, whichever edge you choose to start on. And then just make sure that that inner point, as the crescents come together, the high point on the bottom edge, I lined that up with the base of the blue paper. And that was so that you could not see the edge of the paper peeking through the sticker in any way. So that's what I'm just pointing out right here, that you need to make sure that that sticker is aligned properly so that you don't see that. Then I'm going to grab the next one and go ahead and put it across the top. And going across the top, oh, I was pointing out how nice it was that that blue in the wave, though it does not match the blue in the paper that I'm putting it on, it does match the blue in the flowers that are in the floral print around the outer edge. So it is still a color in our color scheme, which is nice. And then just again keeping the point of the bottom of the scallop, where the scallops come together, that point is right on the edge of that blue paper, again for the top one. And I did the same thing on the left hand side as I came over here, but it was a little easier because I'd already decided how I was going to do it. So the left side is going to be a little quicker. Not sure, haven't decided if I like the voicing over my videos like I'm doing this time. I really didn't have a choice because for some reason my volume on my microphone didn't turn on. So there's a couple of these videos right in a row that I'm having to do the voiceover on. Let me know in the comments what you think about that and whether you like it better when I do voiceover or whether you like it better when I talk along with actually putting it together. I'm curious what your thoughts are on it. I have my own thoughts, but I'll keep those to myself till I find out what you guys think. Alright, so the next part of this is going to be so the layout actually shows using a sticker, this sticker with the sea stars on it along this lower level. But as I placed it on there, I really didn't like it. It had too much white associated with it. It detracted from all the rest of the design. So I just decided we didn't need that, and I put it back. That's why at the beginning of the video I said I talked about this, but I didn't use it. Okay, so now what I'm concerned about is going ahead and getting this photo and this little the little snippet from the magazine pamphlet framed, and I'm not sure we're going to frame any of the other ones at this point. So I just sort of set those up there, but we do need to frame the Samoa banner, and I'm going to use the orange and the blue remnants of what I have to do that. So I'm just scooting that out of the way to give me a little work group. And we're going to, believe it or not, this is going to work. However, we are going to end up with a couple of little gaps, so I had to kind of get creative on that because I wasn't sure I was going to like it, but I tried it anyway, and yeah, I didn't really like the gaps, but I fixed it in the end. We used those little squares. They came in very handy and made it all work. So I'm going to show you how I did that. I took this 1 inch, almost 1 inch strip that we had left over of the orange, and I cut it in half. So it made almost a 1/2 inch piece, two almost 1/2 inch by 12 inch strips. Here I am just checking to make sure it's just right. All right. And then what I did was I stacked these and I cut them at 5 inches. And what that did was it gave me 2 strips that were 7 inches long and 2 strips that were 5 inches long. Okay, so what are we doing? We are framing a 5 by 7 enlargement. So that means I'm going to have a tiny little bit of overlap in the corners, but not enough to complete the square. So you're going to see that here in just a second. I'm going to get my repositionable adhesive, which is your friend in this kind of a situation, because you're going to be lifting and resetting the paper until it is where you want it. I used the grid on my desktop to line that up just to kind of help me visually so that I could just do a 1/4 inch frame, a 1/4 inch mat. And I just tried to center my paper because, as you can see, the orange is hanging off the edge of the picture just a little bit. I think the 5 by 7 must have been cut a little bit shy of 5 by 7. So, which is sometimes what happens. So at any rate, I added more adhesive to the other long side. We're going to go ahead and add this piece of orange again to this long side. It is a little bit tedious and your adhesive likes to stick, so just be patient and, you know, keep redoing it until you get your picture and your paper to marry up where you want. Alright, so now we're going to do the short sides. I just lined it up on one of the grid lines on my desktop just so that I could keep the paper straight and try to keep my photo straight. And you can see the notches in the corner where the paper did not form a complete corner. So we'll take care of that. No worries. At first I thought it might be kind of a cool aesthetic, but then when I put the blue around it, it just didn't make me happy, so we fixed it. Alright, so I'm setting those squares aside because right now I'm at the point where I just want to see how it looks with the blue underneath it. See if it's something that I really need to mess with or not. And I'm going to come in here and cut 2 strips at 3/4 by 12, so 3/4 of an inch another 3/4 of an inch, and I can't remember, maybe I did 3 of them. Did I do 3 of them? I guess I had to come back and cut some more. That's what it was, because I went ahead and I put the blue strips on the long sides and cut them, trimmed them off with my trimmer, and then realized that the corresponding sides were not going to work and make up the difference in the center. So I had to cut another little bit, which is okay. Because I had the paper, I could do that. So just getting it in the right place. There it is. Alright, so then I'm going to bring it over here and just use my trimmer. You can use your scissors and just snip off these pieces, but I just wanted to make sure they were both completely even, so I just decided to use my trimmer. And here's where I figured out that those strips were not going to work to go ahead and complete that layout. So I thought, well, maybe I could just do 2 strips, but then I decided, no, I really want it to be completely framed. So I went ahead and grabbed that blue strip, and I'm going to cut another piece off, and this time I'm cutting it at the length that I need to go in the middle, and then I'm going to cut that in half. Okay, so then we're going to assemble these so that we have the completed blue part of the frame. Stick these on the end. And that part's pretty simple. You just match the edges of the end of the blue and adhere. So it's really pretty quick. Quick and painless. Okay. Now you can still see the notch in the orange part of the frame, which I was not pleased about. It doesn't look horrible, and I could have left it that way probably, and it would not be a huge deal. But I decided that what I'd rather do is go ahead and cover it. So I took these 2 little orange squares and I cut them into triangles, and I just covered up each of the corners of the matte frame with a cute little orange triangle, and I liked that better. So definitely use your repositionable adhesive for this, because it does take a couple of tries, and you do want to make sure that you cover the edge so you do not see the blue at all, because where this goes on the layout, if I can see the blue here when I'm initially putting the triangle on, you're definitely going to see it when you put that on the layout. So just know that. I actually ended up taking those upper 2 off and repositioning them again because later in the layout, because I didn't like the fact that I could still see a tiny bit of the blue paper around one of the edges. I think it was the top edge that was giving me a hard time. Anyway, See how much cuter it is with those little decorative corners, and it gives it some unique character to set it apart a little bit from the other ones, so that's fine. It's cute. And then we're going to use the remaining blue paper to go ahead and frame the little task pamphlet kind of thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut. I'm going to use that thicker piece, and I'm going to cut just a tiny bit off of the end so that I can use it to frame this other piece. And we're going to frame it the same way that we framed the photo. Again, this isn't my favorite way to mat. I usually like to, just have a whole piece of paper that I've matted the photo onto. But in a pinch, it's nice to know that you can mat this way and use a scrap, so you use up all your decorative paper and get good use out of that. And everything still matches, so that's kind of cool. It's a bonus. I feel like I still need to talk. I wish she'd hurry up. Okay, so I'm going to just take this extra little piece that I need for the ends, and we're going to cut it in half, just like we cut the others. And we're going to use it just like we did on the Samoa banner and take care of the ends. It is fortunate that it was kind of the right size, so we didn't have to do very much to adjust it or anything, which is good. All right, so I'm just wiping off the repositionable adhesive that came off on my table so it won't stick to anything. And we're going to go ahead and get these photos laid out to see how we're looking and what kind of embellishing we need to do. So let's see, there's the right side of the layout and the left side of the layout going together in the middle. Initially, what I'm doing there is showing you that initially the layout had just photos across the blue field, and then some banners that came down from the top, and the photos just went all the way across on the blue field and had just one that popped up above it. But because I have some enlargements I'm using on this page, we are going to do this just a little bit different. So it's not going to be just like the original layout that the idea came from for this. And I will go ahead and put a link in the description on this video so you can find the original and see how mine differs, and then go from there in whatever you decide to do with yours. And so right now I'm talking about how I think that the picture of the Ramsey family and us on the side needs to be matted, and so I'm trying to decide what I should use to mat that photo. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab some cardstock. The cardstock I'm going to use is in aqua, and I'm going to go ahead and mat that photo. The upper photo that I'm pointing to right now, I was talking about how I could crop that so that we only see the sister missionaries that are sitting there talking to us on the tour. But I really like the fact that you can see the tour trolley and the driver and the door. So I didn't want to have to crop that photo, and I decided ultimately to not crop it. I swapped these two photos because I didn't want to have something that was essentially a sign that said Samoa. Two pictures that did both of that on the same page I thought was a little bit overkill, so I just swapped them, moved them over. And that one I put up there initially, but then I thought, no, I'm going to put it down here and allow that space up top to journal. So, so we're going to keep that space on the left for me to write the story of these photos. And we're going to make some banners to go in the field, that open orange field on the right side of the border. But in the meantime, I need to grab that aqua colored cardstock. All right, so in that sped up area, you saw me get the aqua cardstock. I cut this 5x7 photo down by a 1/2 inch on each side to eliminate unwanted, unused bits of the photograph. It just focuses the eye a little bit better on the subject matter, and allows me to cut a true 5x7 mat and keep that the same size by just making the picture just a tiny bit smaller. And I'm not sacrificing any bit of the photo that's important. So, so all is well there, that cute Ramsey family. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get these pictures adhered on, and oh, actually I take that back. Well, so I'm going to make some flags to go in that upper area like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, and so right now I'm trying to figure out which papers to use and how long to cut them. So I forgot, I just decided to go ahead and cut these first before I adhered my photos. You can do them in either order, but any way you slice it, you do just need to make sure that your banners that you create, your little flags that come down, that they are not going to be underneath the photo that you're putting on there. So just be careful in your measuring. And I just chose to use my bits that I had left over as my flags. You might want to actually cut your flags so that they are all of a similar size or specific varying sizes. It is good that they are different lengths. It's also good that they're different colors. I tried to use just the papers that I used in the layout and flip them over for different colors that are in the print with the flowers. I did have to cut a little bit of this one because I didn't have enough scraps, which is a good and a bad thing, you know, that you don't have enough scraps to use. But and then it looks like I did a couple of these so that I could flip one of them over and keep one of them the color side down, or you know, the flower side up at any rate. When you do flags, it is a good idea that you try to do an odd number. I think I ended up with an even number on these this time around, but an odd number looks better, and I probably need to go back and just add one more little flag to mine so that it looks a little more balanced. But I just sort of cut them different lengths and decided to go with it. So then I just grabbed my scissors to create the flag portion when I have finally gotten to a spot where I decide that I'm good with the number of flags I've chosen. And I keep wanting to use that little extra bit of a mat card that I had trimmed off of something. And you know, it might have been a good idea to use that. Maybe I will go back and just add that little bit in, because it does match the blue that I used to frame the family photo. So we could add that in and it would probably look nice. But you know, sometimes when you're filming and talking and trying to figure it all out at the same time, you don't think of those things. So I think it might be a little bit hard to put it where I'd want to put it now that I'm looking at the way that I glued down these final ones, because I'm looking at the finished product as I'm talking to you and doing this voiceover. But I could just stick it sort of on the edge and be happy with that. Alright, so you can see I just went ahead and cut those flags into each of the bottom portions, and then I used my repositionable adhesive to go ahead and attach them in an attractive display at the top. And I'm actually just going to add this extra flag while I'm talking to you this time, so that I can get that taken care of. So I place the larger ones first when I'm doing flags like this. I put the larger ones down at the underneath, and then I add the layers of the smaller ones on top. I find that works pretty well. Gives you kind of that variance that you're looking for. So we're just going to add all of these on here, and then we'll get to adhering the photos, and I'll speed up the video so that you don't have to watch all of that as we get all of those glued down. Alright, so now we're going to just grab some stickers and figure out some cute embellishments for this. It really doesn't need a lot of embellishment because the floral pattern I feel like is very busy, so I don't want to overload the layout with a bunch of extra little things to look at. I want to be able to still see the photos first, and let the rest of it kind of enhance. So I'm going to go with this little plant, this kind of fern, and I'm going to add a couple of these smaller little flowers to that fern so that there's just kind of a little cluster. And we'll pop it up with some foam squares. And it'll look nice right there in the center lower part to kind of draw the eye down there. And then we're going to add, so we're just going to play with our foam squares for a minute. They always just take a little bit of time. There we go. So that'll go down there, and then I'll add those flowers on, which you can put a foam square on there, but I recommend that you cut the foam square. I had one foam square left on this small sheet, and so I just cut it diagonally, and then I used the diagonal pieces on these flowers, and that seemed to work pretty well. I don't think if I had cut it straight across and made rectangles out of it, I don't think it would have fit as well. But the triangular pieces seem to fit pretty well on the back of those flowers. And then I just added them in kind of in the notches of the sticker. Another way you could have done it, I could have done it, would be to not put foam squares on them at all and then just stick them on the already raised up sticker. I didn't want to create a second level of foam squares by sticking it on top with a foam square. You know what I mean? So I just sort of added them in the little indents of the sticker, and that seemed to work pretty well. All right, so then the next sticker that we're going to utilize is going to be that palm tree. I think that's what I pulled off and stuck that palm tree in the upper corner right there, just to give it a little bit of something. And make a little focal point up there. And the small foam squares work just great on the trunk of the palm tree. The larger ones are too big, but the small ones fit just perfect. So that made it great. I just put one at the top of the trunk, one at the bottom of the trunk, and one kind of in the middle to give it a little bit of support. You can go way overboard and put foam squares all over everything if you want to, or you can be minimalistic and just put one. But I like to put a little bit in the middle of something larger like that, just so that it doesn't sink down. So I'm going to journal in that area I was just pointing at. We're going to put the palm tree up here, and then I think we're going to be done. That's all we're going to need for that left-hand side of the page. But the right-hand side of the page and the area up there where those ribbons are coming down, those banners, was just really bugging me, and so I decided that I needed to put something up there. And so I pulled off these leaves off the sticker sheet, and I pulled off a nice white flower and decided I would just combine those and kind of make a little bit of a swag across the top of that seam, just to not to cover it completely, but just to make it a little bit less obvious that there were flags coming down there. So one of those white flowers at the top that are kind of hiding because they are blending in with the sheet. There it is. That's what I'm going to use right there. And once that is on, then this layout is going to be done. So we are just about finished. So what do you think? This one took a little bit of time. It's kind of a long video, and I'm sorry that it took so long. But I do think it's kind of a cool way to do a layout, and I do wish I had photos that kind of worked with the layout a little bit better, but I don't think it turned out badly, despite the fact that my photos were a little bit not in line with what you would normally use. Anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope this has inspired you in some way, and I hope that it's a layout that you will try to do and incorporate into your own albums. Until next time, I hope you have many more creative moments. Thanks so much for joining me. You have a great day.